Hey all, this is Ed again, community lead at Persona. Super excited to have Adam here with me today. Adam is the founder of capsule.io. Capsule is actually pretty interesting because Adam himself is super interesting. The guy is like a sponge. He loves, getting information from everywhere, absorbing that, and really trying to find ways in how can he implement and use that as almost like his second brain to get things done. Adam's trying to simplify complexities and all this bureaucracy around the loan and borrow market. So if you're looking for a loan for real estate, for auto, it tends to be quite complex and complicated and messy, to be very honest. And he's just figuring out ways to make it super simple. So as he says, he's building like the kayak or Google Flights, but for loans. So that's pretty interesting. Adam's a pretty low profile guy, so you're not gonna find him tweeting a lot, but he's actually, I love the fact that he's actually caring a lot for the network he has. So it's someone that I'm quite interested in staying in touch with, learning more from. There's a thing that I just got in my mind that people who are building this stealth mode tends to be building something pretty remarkable, where some other people just talk a lot and they make these noises, but there's not much going on behind the scenes. So I like this about Adam, that he's really focused on using his energy for the right things. So without further ado, let's have a conversation with Adam and learn a little bit more about capsule.io, learn more about him. And if you're interested, you can go to capsule.io. It's actually CPSL.io. So it's pronounced capsule, but it's CPSL. So yeah, let's talk to Adam. And if you like this episode, please make sure you subscribe, you share this with people, share on your networks. If you're interested in being in, or if you know someone who could be interesting to be invited here, let me know. I'll be super keen to talk to these people. Again, we're not setting boundaries of we're gonna only talk to this and this and this types of businesses. I'm all ears if you're interested. And if you wanna join the Persona community, go to withpersona.com/community and I'll see you there. Okay, take care, stay well, and talk soon. I got Adam here. Adam, thank you so much for the time. First of all, who is Adam Luther? And then tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Ed. So I'm born and raised in Northern California, spent 10 years in tech, both at big companies and some small startups. But the common thread through my 10 years of professional working experience was marketplaces. Um, Basically building the forum or optimizing the forum where buyers and sellers meet. And so having gotten all the scar tissue from dealing with marketplace businesses, starting them from scratch or an idea on a piece of napkin, I came up with an idea after having my own personal battles with shopping for loans in real estate and auto transactions. I'm pretty sure most people would agree, but generally speaking, when you go to a bank and get a loan, I don't think people care about who it comes from, so long as it's the best price. And so in the real estate world and auto world especially, the tiniest interest rate savings can be a lot of money because it's usually spread over 5 years on a car, or maybe 3 years or 30 years on a mortgage. And so it may not look like a lot, but going from 3.875 to 3.75 isn't a very big jump on an interest rate standard deviation basis, but it's a lot of money when you amortize it over the term of a loan. So I dealt with this problem 70 times head on, both in auto and real estate transactions. And I realized that in order for me to find the best price, I have to basically door to door knock and ask people questions, give them some documentation, basically engage with them as if I'm their friend after 45 minutes of dialogue. And then they give me a price. So they say hey, we'll give you the home, you give us this down payment, and we'll give it to you at this price. This is the layman's version of it. But having those dialogues, after 5 or 7 of them, you're exhausted. This is a nights and weekends job. And so when you're looking for a home or trying to finance a car, you only have so much time before you just give up and you're okay, I have 5 options. I'm going to choose the best in the lot and then go with that loan or go with that lender. What I believe should exist is a kayak type marketplace. When you go on Kayak or Google Flights, let's say, super simple UI, no ads, no spam. You're not getting beaten up with a bunch of friction. You just type in, I want to go from this airport to that airport on these dates. And boom, you get every single carrier that flies on that route to give you their price. So within seconds, you know A to Z, all the players in the space and what the price is. And you pick your experience, right? If you want a bigger seat, Google Flights shows you information like that. But more or less, you give it 10 seconds of your time with constraints and you get options. I want the same thing to exist for loans. And we're starting by building the most frictionless experience for borrowers so they can come on, not have to be bombarded by who are you, where do you work, what's your boss's phone number, how much do you make, what's your headquarters address for your company, how much money do you have in this account, how much money do you have in that account. I mean, it's literally hundreds of fields that people manually fill out today, and that's just to get one quote. So I want to build the the equivalent of having a user spend less than 10 seconds giving constraints and then get an idea of what their options are. And obviously people are smart. They'll pick the cheapest lender because money is just as green as it is from the next guy. So all things equal, my belief is that because users obviously want to pay as little as possible for a regular loan, why not give them the forum where people can bid on their business, and they can find the best price really fast just by a couple of clicks.
That's awesome. And I mean, first of all, congrats, because that's on itself a big challenge. I can tell. I mean, I think I've been recently in this situation where I bought a house and I was going through like loans, and usually I think there may be two concerns, right? First is like knowing who you can borrow from. Like usually the idea is that you can only go to banks, and there's way more than you can do and options around there of like even like other companies that are not necessarily banks. Second, to your point, you fill out this, I don't know, 30-page form. Again, it's disgusting. It's boring. It's long. You take forever. And then once you're done, you don't get a quote. You just get like, someone's going to call you back. And you're like, oh my God. And then you have to go through everything again. And it's just, it's so arbitrary. They're like, oh, so okay, based on all of that, it's this percentage interest rate or whatever it is like that we can offer you this amount for. And it's just really, really bad, as you said. This is, I love this idea, and I'm grateful someone is doing this. I hope someone is doing this in Europe as well.
I mean, hopefully that's us in a few years.
Yeah, why not? Of course. And I have a question, because I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because obviously when you throw in like an option like, you know, a kayak for any options, usually people will go for like by default the cheapest option. Like they're like, okay, this is the lowest interest, but there's probably way more things that go on that, like credibility of that, you know, creditor, that brand behind it. Are you kind of like thinking about these things as well?
So I spent a couple of years in one of those marketplaces that I worked at for 10 years was actually Yelp. As you know, like Yelp's decision driving comes from reviews. So when you look for a place to eat, you're not going to go to the newest restaurant with like one review. If there's a better restaurant right underneath it for the exact same type of food that has 500 5-star reviews. So given how I learned in the 2 years that I spent at Yelp, like the psychology behind decision making when it comes to reviews, and just general credibility, there's a very similar thinking that happens in shopping for a lender, like deciding who to work with is going to fund your deal. Lenders will bait and switch. They will say, oh, Ed looks like a creditworthy borrower, we'll give him this rate. And then a month later, when they show you documents and you're ready to move into your home, the rate has gone up. So like a lot of ethical decision making happens, a lot of reputation decision making happens from a borrower's angle. And right now, I guess the gold standard is reviews. We've definitely thought about it, and we're going to definitely find a way to bake in a review piece. I don't know if Yelp is the best model to go after, because you know reviews can be bought, but we believe that underneath as a part of our sweet sauce, in terms of a recommendation or the list of options, we can basically build an equivalent for credibility and scoring, so that based on a number of data points like number of transactions, general consensus of those transactions from the borrower's point of view, and if that person came through on the terms that they promised, the best will come to the top and the bad players will fall to the bottom. So the people that do this bait and switch game, the people that take 6 months to close a loan when it should take 2 weeks, those guys will naturally fall to the bottom and they won't get as much business or exposure. Just like you have on like the 10th page of Google results. No one knows who those people are. When you're looking for a search on Google, you hit the first page and the first few results are who you generally trust. Same thing I believe we can build within our confines, which is the bad players will be buried. That's just their own doing. And the good players with good experiences and good prices will come to the top.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's totally fair. And I mean, how obviously to come up with this, you mentioned marketplace, but that's
Yeah.
one side of the business. I mean, there's the whole thing behind it, which is like this,
The
uh,
application form. Yeah.
yeah, everything that goes
Yeah.
around it. Like what are you thinking about? Like, I mean, what's your expertise? And like, are you building this with a team of experts in this? Because it sounds like super complicated, even though it's simple to explain.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, everything I'm giving you today is an amalgamation of a bunch of scars, but also like dialogues that I've had with people in the industry. So right now, at this moment in time, it's just me and a co-founder, technical co-founder that writes all the code. And he takes a lot of what I give him as gospel because I've gone through this process from a borrower's point of view so many times.
Mhm.
And he's gone through it a handful as well. But whatever I tell him is like the way the world works, he generally falls in line with and believes because I've gone through it so many times. Like I know this intimately. Like I sleep with these memories. So in terms of the build today and our progress in taking MVP to market, it's mostly been driven by my experiences and my preference for design. But our goal is to iterate in the early day with really small lenders that have time and bandwidth to kind of feel like advisors. So the early lenders that we're piloting right now with are basically SMB type lenders. They're small guys, maybe 5-man companies, and they run a very small credit line. They're basically brokers, so they go and sell loans to Ed and Adam, and then they go resell them later on to Wall Street or bigger buyers. Now these guys have more bandwidth. They're not like a 9 to 5 Bank of America or Wells Fargo butts and seat type people.
Mhm.
So they are like fascinated by new tech. So they can not only help inform product guidance and technical features, but they also like want to feel like they're making a change in the industry. And so their feedback and guidance is going to be super helpful, I think, in the next 6 months as we bring on a handful of these guys and use them as a customer advisory board for the lender
Yeah,
product. But yeah,
that's
I mean, going
amazing.
back to your initial question, there's 3 big pillars we put the business on. One being this like lender operating system, which is how do you help these small and medium sized lenders do a better job by taking in borrowers and then converting them. The second piece is like a application form replacement. So can I make Ed's life so much easier that instead of filling out 100 fields, he takes 3 pictures and does a selfie scan with Persona. Like that's a very easy and slick experience, and it doesn't cost Ed more than 10 seconds. And then the third thing is the marketplace that I think we've talked about a good amount so far. But yeah, the marketplace I think is the mecca. But along the way, we need to build along the journey, we need to build the really nice application form replacement, and the lender OS for these people to transact with people that are using Capsule.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I think you touched on two really, really interesting things there. Obviously, you, as you said, like you gone through this, you found the opportunity, but the risk was like, okay, how do we then verify this, applications in something that's like easy, but also makes sense, right? It has to be sensible. You don't want to just make it simple, but not necessarily efficient. So
Yeah.
I love that because I mean, it touched on persona and without trying to get like some free camel here mentioned, but
Promotion.
yeah, self promo. But how did you find out about persona, or like did you get to a point where you're like, we need to do some verification and maybe this is going to be something that we can do through a solution, like a third-party solution, and then you did your research, or you had like in the back of your mind like, I do have to do this? I mean, I'm curious, you're like, how did you find out about persona, but even the fact that this could be potentially a solution for you?
Yeah. I honestly can't remember how I came to learn about you guys, but it was through a consumer app I use. And that's because like I'm a nerd. I self assess as one, and I don't think it's anything to be like ashamed of. But I spend most of my days on forums like Hacker News, so I'm always looking or Product Hunt or even like YC Launch.
Yeah.
So I'm basically seeing like a constant feed of new and upcoming projects or companies and products. And so I think like remember Turo, the car sharing service, I was probably one of the first 100 users.
Wow.
And I think Turo's a customer, if I'm not mistaken, of Persona. But I was using one of these consumer products as a really early user, and I saw Persona's branding on the bottom when I was doing, I think, a selfie scan actually. And so I saw this, a bell clicked or something clicked in my mind, so I had noted it down for later. I also use a adjacent service that I think Persona you guys know a lot about, and I think pair really nicely with is Stitch, the Magic Link sign-on
Hmm.
provider.
Hmm.
So when I was thinking about like just the wireframes for what Capsule should look and feel like, I was already well informed of the possible players to partner up with, like Persona, that agree with our goalpost of how do you make lives really easy and delete all friction that's possible. So instead of typing in a username and password, how do you make it so that they just type in their email and they get a link and they click, instead of typing a password or remembering a password? How do you mitigate fraud? I mean, like in our world, in lending especially, there's a few major pillars just that drive underwriting and drive decisioning for a lender to give you money. It's do you make a constant pattern of money, or is your income lumpy? If it's lumpy, it's a problem. And then, are you really who you say you are? No one wants to give away $800,000 to a fake person. Um,
Yeah.
so these absurd amounts of money, but also like pattern matching for to figure out, like, does this person make a regular income? Are really big decisions that happen in lending. And so personas like fit, like I think its value fits like a glove in terms of what our value is as well, and the value we want to deliver to lenders and borrowers alike. Can we prove that Ed's driver's license is actually Ed, and vice versa?
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing, man. It's great because I think there's a lot of people think of, you know, this kind of validation and this process as something that's just for highly regulated businesses, and obviously lending is super important, but I think you touched
Yeah.
something that's even more important than that, which is like the trust level, understanding like, is this person who they claim to be?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're spot on. I mean, this is so great. How much, I mean, I'm curious because being a nerd, being like curious, I think that's something that I have a little bit of me, but you already taught me something at the very beginning of this conversation already. I'm dying to try this continuity. But how much of that, because there are fellow founders who are like probably listening to this or like watching us, and they're like, man, this, I wish I had someone like Adam in my team. How much of this do you feel like contributes to what you're building now? Like the fact that you're like super curious, trying like new things, like being like early adopter in like tools and platforms. Does that help you like be more successful, or even like find a alternative that you wouldn't be thinking otherwise?
I don't like to self-assess and say I'm either successful or not. I think like a lot of people, like Mark Cuban, I think says always be a student or always be like a sponge. I live by that like ethos. I only use Hacker News and all these like sites to come up on the latest and greatest because I like always want to learn about how to do things better. I think like maybe at my core you could say like I'm an automation junkie. Like I'm always looking for a fast track. If there's 3 steps that most people follow and I can find a way to do the exact same, get to the same exact destination with 1 step instead of 3, I'm always ears. So I don't necessarily see it as an edge or a leg up or as a measure of more success than the guy next to me. But I do think like it definitely serves me when I think of new ideas to maybe I already have seen a tool like Persona in my past life that I could integrate into this new idea. And that's the case with Capsule. I didn't think about Persona after I had already conceived Capsule and started wireframing it and building it and coding it with my partner. I already knew about Persona. And so like having it in the back of my mind or having it as like a tab saved in like a drawer that I have in my Notion was helpful because I could just quickly do a quick search and see possible players or integrations that I have on like a, what do you call it, wish list.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think it's an edge or a competitive advantage per se. I just think it comes with who I am. Like I'm always looking to learn and come from a place of humility, I would say, to just always understand if someone is doing something that is a little better than the way I've normally normalized doing it, what can I learn from this person or this company or this product? So that's kind of how I look at it.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And I mean, what's next for you guys? I mean, are you guys operating? Like, are you up and running now? Can people go in and like start to book, you know, time with you, or what's next?
Yeah. We're very selective right now with our onboarding. So our go-to-market is actually not the most linear in terms of like starting a company and launching and going to market. We don't want all the publicity right now in regards to like borrowers knocking on our door asking for help. We're pretty selective in choosing small and medium-sized lenders to help them with the lender operating system, which is the intake engine or application engine for borrowers, and help them do a better job with their book of business. The next step then is building like a consumer product, which we'll get to, I think, later on. But right now, most of our energy is spent in serving lenders. Followed by stage 2 would be building a consumer product like Kayak And then you have a marketplace. Once you've already solved a problem for both the sellers and the buyers in this would-be forum, the next thing is building the forum. So right now, to answer your question directly, unfortunately, we're pretty selective on who we're bringing on the Lender OS product. But the goal is obviously to very soon like open up really wide and make all these announcements and splashes and take on and help borrowers. But for anybody interested that's watching, if you're shopping for a home or loan, like I'm not going to turn down helping you out. It'll just be, I mean, like this is a disclaimer, like it'll be a little bit more manual than we'd like, but I'll do that work. I would love to help people get the best rates and terms, because like a lot of money can be saved by just a couple of hacks that I know that I want to bake into software. But like I said, I won't turn anybody away that's looking for help if they're in the middle or at the beginning of a transaction. But right now, like most of our energy is focused on helping lenders first, like the small and medium-sized lenders.
Yeah.
So if those folks are watching, would love to help them like right now.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, scarcity is also a strategy, and it helps as well, right? I wish I knew you before I bought my house, man. I would get like probably way better loan terms.
I mean, you can always refi, but yeah, always love to help. Always love to help if I can do anything.
That's awesome. And I have a question that's maybe like the geek side of me as well, like kind of like seeing what's going on there. And I'm curious to hear your perspective. I mean, there's a lot of like new, I'm not going to say like they're companies yet. They're probably like features or people chasing opportunities with AI. Do you feel that this could help you? Because you mentioned like, I mean, if there's a shortcut or there's a way to do this better with automation or any type of work that saves human hours, you would be up for it. Do you feel AI could be like a next step or something that you're interesting as well?
I don't think it would be a next step, like a definitive next step in our journey. I think it would be something that we layer on into our roadmap. A lot of people have been talking about AI recently, and I don't like want to force an opinion or like push some weird narrative that I might get a lot of pushback for. But my thinking is that like we've had a version of AI for a long time. I mean, if you think about what OCR does, OCR is a computer via camera taking a picture of something and parsing off data from it. Not the best, but it's only gotten better over the past 10 years. We're using OCR. So if we were talking 10 years ago and AI wasn't even a concept or an acronym even, we were using AI and we were thinking about AI in our business today as Capsule, because we're doing OCR. Like right now, what we're building is Ed should be able to come on, take a couple of pictures, and not have to worry about the data on those pictures, like his driver's license number, date of birth, etc., or his pay stubs. Our software will do all that. It'll take off the core data that a lender needs to see without having to have Ed type in that stuff manually. So AI can definitely, I think, be a crutch or at least like a support post. But I think down the road, we can figure out like where its place is in our business. But I mean, I believe that we've been using it for a longer time than it's been talked about. It's only become recently a phenomenon of sorts, but we've used OCR, there's many other tools. I think there's also a world wherein like, not to replace underwriting or humans in the businesses that we help, like lending businesses, AI can augment those jobs. AI can maybe take a first pass, or a GPT equivalent can take a first pass at an application. And then based on some provided constraints from the lender, they can just look at a application really fast via Capsule and decide yay or nay. If the lender, I mean, if the borrower has like a really bad credit score or just lumpy income, and unfortunately there's one bank using our software doesn't help those types of borrowers, then why does it require a human intervention? Why can't a computer really quickly respond in 5 seconds and say yay or nay, and then not waste the borrower's time? So, I mean, I don't know if AI is going to be that like silver bullet per se, but I go back to this example over and over again. Kayak and Google Flights are really nice places for information on how to get from A to B, because you go there and you spend 5 seconds giving constraints, and then you click and boom, you get every single player. You don't have to wait for 5 minutes or a day to come back with this airline's price. You get every single price. That should be an existing offering in the loan space. And I think that can be done by software and AI. It doesn't need many humans. If a bank has particular underwriting guidelines, they should be able to provide it to an API through our system and present those options to a borrower, just like you get on Kayak. Like I just love the instantaneous nature of searching for flights, and I don't love the non-existent instantaneous nature of looking for a loan.
Yeah.
So AI could definitely be like a steroid in that, but who knows if it'll replace? I can't make bets yet.
Yeah, yeah. And I have like one curiosity. Like, I mean, I imagine that founders meet with fellow founders. They kind of like keep in touch, or at least trying to understand what's going on in their worlds. And is there
Yeah.
anything that any company that you have been following like recently, or anyone building something interesting that maybe it's like under the radar, like it's not like so known, or maybe it's completely not related to AI, but that you feel like, oh, these guys are doing something quite interesting, and I'm following them.
Um, I mean, this is biased a little bit, but I have a buddy of mine that runs a company called Pinwheel.
Yeah.
And Pinwheel is basically an API for pay data.
Wow.
So these guys had their glory. I mean, not these guys. This industry had their glory in the fintech boom that happened over the past couple of years,
Mhm.
and basically they modeled after what Plaid does. Plaid lets you single sign on to any bank and then share that banking data with whatever consumer app Plaid is inside that you're using, like Robinhood, for example.
Mhm.
So my buddy Kurt started this company. I used to work with him at Volvo, actually. And this company essentially would be a great partner for us. But I've been following him as a friend from the sidelines, but plan to like work with him on a deeper level, business to business, pretty soon. Because what he can do, and I think which is pretty neat, is for borrowers, instead of having to go manually get pay stubs, I think being able to sign on frictionless and then have pay stubs be streaming or pay data be streaming to an app like ours is pretty neat
Wow.
and pretty compelling. Like, imagine a world wherein you have this locker, Ed, of like your insurance documents, your assets, any liabilities you have, credit cards or like major loans outstanding, literally every personal finance related document, like your brokerage balances, in a locker that's guarded by you, the best security. It's all yours. No one's selling it, pieces of it. Um, but that locker only required you 5 minutes to set up. So what I'm talking about is like helping use that locker at the point of sale when you're looking for a loan. But what Kurt is thinking about, which I think is a really compelling idea, is how does Ed log in once to his payer or his pay stub provider, and have that data always be streaming with the latest into this locker. I think that's pretty neat.
Wow.
Like, I think never having to go dig into ADP or Gusto, whoever pays you, or through what platform you get your pay, or like ever touch your driver's license again, or any insurance documents ever again. Just have all those silos be streamed in to a locker that's yours, that's centralized, is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I always liken this to like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you go to get coffee, you take your wallet out. Actually, 20 years ago, you take your wallet out and give them your card, and then your card had imprinted numbers. And what they would do is take that card and carbon paper swipe it so that they had
Yeah.
a paper receipt, and then you'd sign that receipt. I mean, I'm dating myself by saying all this, but
I do remember all of
like,
that.
imagine taking out your wallet and then someone
Yeah.
takes a carbon paper and then puts
Yeah.
something over it so they get the number off of it. And then every night they reconcile those receipts manually and charge your card for that coffee. Now, what do? You take your phone out, double tap it, and boom, money moves, and you
Yeah.
walk away with coffee in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Um, I love that premise, and I can't imagine other industries not using a version of that to like replace these archaic and friction full experiences.
Totally, man. I mean, I'm all in for that. I wonder, like, I'm still hoping that someday we're not gonna have passports anymore, because the paper
Yeah,
passport is just a nightmare. Right?
exactly.
And yeah, I'm
Exactly.
all in for that. Man, that's great. It's good. I'm always learning stuff from people that I'm talking to. So I really appreciate your time for
That's
this.
awesome. You're just like me. You're a sponge.
Yeah, I love doing that. And let me ask, like, is there any way people can find you if they want to connect with you, maybe follow things that you're working on, Capsule, but even beyond that, like follow Adam in general? Like, do you have like a channel that you prefer people to follow you on, or you're more like a stealth mode guy?
I'm not really stealth mode. I used to say like I'm a reader, not a tweeter.
Uh-huh.
And I still am. I like to soak in information and not really like share too much or like riff about random things. Like I just saw a bird or whatever. Like people post a lot on Twitter, or like
Yeah.
saw this fight happen. Like I am pretty quiet online. And frankly, it's like I'd rather be building. I'd rather put my head down and build. And it's not so much like guarded stealth mode operation in my mind. It's more so like, can I give that energy elsewhere, to my family, to anything else other than like the internet, and like pounding my chest all day. So I don't use LinkedIn. I use AngelList just so people kind of have an idea of where I've spent time at companies. But my network lives in a Notion database and on my phone in my favorites list. And I like to keep in touch with my friends that I've made, both in like my personal life, but also like professional life, that I made friends through, and keep in touch with them, and like just log notes from calls. So unfortunately, there's not many places that I have like public information about myself online. Capsule.io is the business I'm building. I'm on AngelList, I'm on Twitter, but yeah, most of my friends, I guess weirdly enough, I just give my energy to them via calling them or texting them or seeing them. And so I keep a pretty small circle, and it's usually organized internally, as opposed to like LinkedIn, where I can look up who Ed knows or who this person knows. Yeah. So sadly, I don't have that deep of a public network, but I'm happy with what I have in private in this little bubble of mine.
Oh man, I mean, I could be like a whole podcast only on that, because I've spent some time going offline, let's call it, from my online world, and it's just so much better. I mean, there's so much going on, and that's like even prior to pandemic or any of that. Pandemic was just like a reminder for a lot of people, but you're absolutely right. I mean, put time on where your heart is, like family, get stuff that that you love doing. Yeah, I was actually going and checking you on Twitter. I was like, dude, this guy has like a post in 2020. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's stealth.
No, but a lot of people, like, on that note, a lot of people take a lot of pride in like knowing a lot of people, like whatever, 500 connections on LinkedIn. I would rather have like a deep relationship with 50. And I have that. I mean, like, I know right now cold, you could quiz me and tell me like, who do you know at Adobe that works in product? Well, I could tell you that person's name, as opposed to having to go on LinkedIn and sift through it. And then maybe like I talked to this person 3 years ago. Yeah. So like, not to knock on people that use LinkedIn religiously, power to them, but I don't want to invest my time in there. And I'd take more pride in someone asking me like, can you connect me to this person at this company, or this person with this core competency? Because I'm looking for advice. I can make that call and introduction on text in 10 seconds. So for me, it's like quality over quantity. Rather have 4 quarters than 10 dimes. But yeah, also just some calculus in regards to energy given. So I'm not gonna spend an hour commenting or dunking or tweeting on the internet when I can give that to other people that I think very highly of in my friend circle and my family.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. I mean, you're absolutely right. So I'll leave the link for the capsule.io here, and make sure that people can link to, and whenever like you're expanding, let us know. Be happy to talk again and hear like what's going on in your next ventures, and even capsule just growing to Europe. Who knows? So yeah,
that's the goal. I appreciate it, Ed. Thank you for the time. Thanks for jumping on and just like riffing with me, and learning, and your curiosity to learn more about what we're doing.
Yeah, I learned all the terms. Seriously, like I learned like 3 or 4 terms like before even the call, and after the call, I'm like, no more stuff. It's great.
That's too much.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. It was great chatting, Ed. Thanks for setting this up. First of all, I think it's really noble of you, and like I think Persona is great. We can't wait to integrate more and grow together. But look forward to staying in touch. Again, thanks for the time and jumping on with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thanks everyone. I'll put the links below. And thanks again, man. Take care and stay well.